Our time.
I recognise the Honourable Member David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And today we discuss the Immigration Amendment Bill that's the last party, the Labor Party, has said that they're going to oppose, which is very disappointing because members of this House would have expected most parties to agree on this, especially parties that have New Zealand's best interests in their heart. And when we look at the context of immigration, it's something that is a very vocal and emotive subject, and people have a lot of opinions on. But essentially, New Zealand survives on immigration. It's a big part of the history of our country. It's also a big part of the future of our country, as we have many migrants in this country, and we have many migrants in this House that have made New Zealand their home and have found that it has been very successful for them as a place to live. And migration is one of those things that will be important for our region. As part of the Asia-Pacific region, we will see that there will be increasing trends to migration within this region. And you will see a very successful Asian regional economy on our doorstep, which will enable people to have money and then choices. And with money and choices, people will look for lifestyle, and New Zealand has the opportunity, I guess, to pick the best migrants from that region, but also has some risks, because people will see New Zealand as an opportunity with a country which has a low population, has a clean, green environment, and has a very strong social system. We have an education and health system that would not be comparable to many other Asian countries. And Australia has found that to be the reality. From that, the areas of the subcontinent and through Southern Asia, Southeast Asia, many people see Australia as very attractive, because what does Australia offer? A low population, large land mass, and social services such as education and healthcare that are very difficult to obtain in those people's country of origin. So naturally there is a desire to come to New Zealand and Australia. And New Zealand and Australia will be the focal points for that growing population of people that will have the ability to make that transition out of their country of origin. And the question then for New Zealand is, do we enable people to come to New Zealand? And I don't think anybody in this House would say no, that we don't want people to come to New Zealand, because we need to have a growing population, and new people bring in new values, new histories, new diversity to our country that adds and builds to this country. But we have a choice of who we bring in to New Zealand. And we need to make sure that we use and exercise that choice properly. And we need to be able to bring in people that will add value to New Zealand in the sense that they have skills and they are willing to make New Zealand their home and their future. And so while we have a bit of choice as a government as to how and who we allow into New Zealand, the individuals coming to New Zealand also have some choices as well, because they have some choices about meeting the criteria to move to a country like New Zealand and Australia. And the criteria are very simple. New Zealand and Australia will be looking for skilled migrants going forward. And the policies that you see around migration are primarily based around having skills. Do you have the ability to speak English? Do you have the ability to provide skills?
Order.
Does the individual have the ability to provide skills to the country, and also to develop New Zealand into a stronger place? And so when you look at that policy decision we have in migration, this bill becomes very important, because it sends a signal about what New Zealand seeks, and it also sends a signal that, as the member over there says, that New Zealand's is a soft touch. So I look forward to him supporting this bill, because this bill shows that we're not a soft touch. And I don't know if he's going to support this bill, because he's talking about, oh, now it's democracy. A minute ago it was we're not allowed to be seen as a soft touch. This bill tightens the rules around that, and yet this member over there won't support it. Now tell me how that works. Tell me where the degree of strength of conviction that we should see from the New Zealand First Party, a party that their name is based around issues such as this. Yes, no, he doesn't want to see a tightening of these rules. But the other side of this bill is that we've got to take into account the many migrants that come to New Zealand and make a lot of sacrifices to come here. The thousands of people that learn the English language, that make sure they have the skills to come to New Zealand. Those people need to be treated with respect for the sacrifice that they've made to make New Zealand their home. And if we don't give them the reward in the sense that becoming New Zealand residents and citizens for learning the English language, bringing those skills to New Zealand, we send them the wrong signal as well. And I think it's important for those migrants that have come to New Zealand that they see fairness and equity within the New Zealand system, and that they don't see people can bypass them in the system just because they get on a boat and come through a process like that. And so when we look at this legislation, we must look at the signals that we'll send to migrants that are here, but migrants that intend to come here. And when we look at the legislation, you look at other countries that are in a similar boat, like Australia, that have looked at this as an issue that they've had to deal with. The Australians have had to deal with it as an issue right on their doorstep now. In New Zealand, we don't have to deal with it right on our doorstep as we are not as close to those regions as Australia is. But it will come. At some point it will come. And if we are not prepared, then we will be in trouble. And the part of being in this government and being in Parliament is to be prepared. And we will be prepared. And it is in the best interests of New Zealand to be prepared for this going forward. This is the opposition talking about being prepared for an earthquake. Well, if they've got a crystal ball, that would be great to see. But we look forward to them supporting this legislation rather than being contrary to it as we normally expect. So this legislation is good for New Zealand because it prepares our country for any future situations that may arise that we need to have some rules and regulations in place. It's good for New Zealand in that it sends the right signals to those people that see New Zealand as a future. It shows that we are an open country, but we are open if you fulfil the rules and regulations. That is if you've got the skills and you fulfil the immigration rules, and that you don't try and use the process in a way that isn't fair to those that have made those sacrifices and those that want to make those sacrifices in the future. And it also shows that we are a country open for migration because that is part of our future and our history. And it's very important. It is important because New Zealand is built on migration, and it is going to be a big part of our future. And we can't discount that, and we need to recognise the importance of migration in our future, and we need to recognise the importance of that in regard to people that make the right choices and do the right things, and not on the basis of some kind of perception of what may be the case. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a good bill. It sends the right signals. It protects New Zealand for the future, and we look forward to other parties voting in favour of this legislation as they should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the